and welcome to We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening. And joining me tonight is a gentleman that's known for YouTube. He's known for his very relaxed attitude. He's known for his playthroughs. He's known for his wife, Jen. It is the one, the only, the rather wonderful Mr. Richard Ham, also, as everybody knows him, Rahdo. So, good evening, sir. How are you this evening?
I am A-OK, other than the fact it's around 90 degrees Fahrenheit here in Malta. I don't know what that is in Celsius. Apologies. You'd think I'd know that after living in Europe for 10 years now. But I still, every time I have to think about it, I have to do the double and add 32 math in my head.
I don't know, it can't be 65. Is that 65? Is that less? I don't know. Otherwise this would be the weather podcast. We need a meteorologist. Where's a meteorologist when you kinda need one? It's just ridiculous. But, first of all, thank you for coming on. This was a case of me doing my normal, which is seeing somebody I'd like to speak to and going, hello, would you like to come on the podcast? And you said, yeah, send me a message. And then it kind of came from that. So I really appreciate you taking the time out, sitting inside in 90-degree heat with a glass of water, speaking to a Scottish guy who can only dream of getting into the high 60s. Let's be kind of perfectly kind of honest. First of all, for everybody that's joining us for the first time this evening, hello, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is quite simply because we believe there's not enough podcasts out there about board games. We've had a good check. We're now checking through YouTube and seeing if there's any kind of podcasts on there either. Still haven't found any. And the other reason that we do this is, I wanted to speak to Rahdo. I mean, to be perfectly honest, so I asked him and he said yes, so we're having him on this evening. I'm sure that you've done this millions of times. I'm sure that you've spoken about your history with the kind of the genre and the hobby itself. But can I jump back a little bit further than that? Because I did my research. Yeah, I went on LinkedIn and and I thought, let's have because I said, right, if I'm going to speak to somebody who's well known in the industry, I have to go and actually have a look rather than just say, let's not do any research and just kind of play dumb. But you were involved in, Fable 2, which was a really kind of one of my favorite games, at the time. What was it before you did that, what did you do? What was your involvement in that game?
In Fable 2 specifically,
yeah.
I was the co-lead designer. I think my official title was design manager. Mm-hmm. I worked very closely, hand in hand, predominantly with Dean Carter, who was one of the original co-creators of the Fable franchise, the Carter brothers, Dean and Simon.
Yeah.
Founded Big Blue Box, and, they were kind of taken under Peter Molyneux's wing, under the aegis of Lionhead to get the Fable 1 out. And I had already been in the video game industry for, 12, 13 years by that point. And it's interesting, I came to Lionhead not to work on Fable, even though I had been a big fan of the first Fable.
Yeah.
I came to work on the console version of the movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Activision thought, this is going to be a big deal. This is going to be our version of The Sims. And I had been the lead designer on the console translation of The Sims back when I was in Texas. So they hired me for that. Uh-huh. And that was a lot of fun. I was having a great time. I got to work a little bit on the PC version of the movies. I kind of helped out with the movie editor and just a few little things here and there while we were doing preliminary pre-production work for the console game. And then, very, very sadly, and much to everybody's surprise, the movies on PC just did not take off. Everybody thought it was going to be a monster hit. And it was certainly well reviewed. It was hugely loved. I mean, there was a big, big fan base making tons of movies with it. But the game just kind of fizzled. And as a result, the console version got shelved, which was heartbreaking. I was so keen on what we were doing there. But at this point, I'm I'm living in the UK. I'm working at Lionhead, and so those of us on that team had to make the shift, and I ended up taking a lead design position on Fable 2, which had I think they had been working on some preliminary stuff for just a few months when I came in.
Yeah.
And and the rest is history. What was I responsible for? One, I was responsible for managing the entire design team, which was the biggest team I had ever taken on. I think we had 5 full-time level designers. We probably had 10 or 15 scripters, which are basically like designers/programmers, and our level designers are like designers/artists. And so I had a lot of managerial responsibilities, and a big part of my focus was trying to help Dean run interference between Peter Molyneux and the team as a whole. Because Peter, I will say to my dying breath, is a warm, wonderful person. I know he gets a lot of flack, and there's a lot of bad blood out there for him, but and I'll be honest, I mean, the man drove me absolutely insane. But he's sometimes he's just a kid in a candy store, and you just can't help himself. But he's also a brilliant, instinctive designer. And while I think he's very much out of touch with modern design philosophy and requirement, because he came up working on Populous and the original Black and White at a time when it was just a small group of people, just a few coders, everybody did everything. And he always kind of brought that attitude to modern AAA console development, where you've got a team of 200 people, and it's like, it's steering an ocean liner. It's not, trying to, steer a dinghy or something like that. I mean, it's a big enterprise, and you can't just shift on a dime. Yeah. So a big part of my job was looking for what his instinct led him to. Like, Peter was the reason the dog was in the game. When, we had already been working on the game, he was finishing up, movies. He was finishing up Black and White 2. He was only tangentially aware of what we were doing with Fable 2. And then eventually when those were done, and, the Eye of Sauron descended on us, he showed up, and I mean that in a loving way. But, it feels that way. It was like, okay, well, we're off in the shadows. Nobody knows what's going on. We can do what we want. Oh, Peter's in the building now. And the first thing he said is, we're gonna have a dog in this game.
Did he just walk past and do that, and just like, did he go, we're gonna have a dog?
Yep.
Kept on going like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can just imagine.
And the thing is, I mean, there was a minor riot among the team. The team wanted none of that. What? This isn't our vision for the game, because certainly there was nothing quite like that in the original Fable. And, if we have to have a pet, let's at least make it a dragon. Or, something cool. A dog? There's nothing cool about that. But you have to give Peter full credit for understanding what was so powerful and universal. And I'll be honest, both Dean and I got it immediately. Peter said that, he talked to us about it, and we were immediately on board. Yes, you're right. This is definitely what we have to do. But then the problem was, all right, okay, we've got this vision from on high. We think it's brilliant. We got to convince the team it's going to work, because they're going to go kicking and screaming into it. And now that, we're on board and we know what Peter wants out of it, we just have to keep him at arm's length so we can actually do the thing. Which again is a full-time job.
Was he like, one of the things you used to hear about George Lucas, or you always see in the kind of the creation, how, the kind of the creation videos of any Star Wars is, it's like everybody presents kind of like what they want Jabba to look like, and then George kind of went round and went, I like him. And then everybody, everybody went, all right, he's famous designer now. I mean, was it the kind of the opposite, that you'd have him running in with like 50 million ideas and you had to kind of like say, no, we can't have a camel, we can do this, but we can't do that? Was he kind of like, because he struck me was kind of, it was a mind that was aflame with ideas, and 50 of them you would just go, you're going to have to sit down. But then you come out with one and you go, oh, actually, this is really, really good.
No, I wouldn't say that was the case with him. The reality is he came in with a small list of demands. Because he's very, I don't think it's fair to say he's very market focused, although that's the end result. He's very, player experience focused. He's very, very cognizant of, trying to do something that's new and different and that will be immediately compelling and compulsive. And he's also a brilliant salesman. He's driven by what he knows he can get people excited about as much as anything else. So, after he came on board, one of his pillars was one-button combat. And, he spent the better part of 2 years talking that up to the press. And you've played Fable 2. It's kind of BS. We don't really have one-button combat, even remotely. But, he was still very, very keen on it. And in fact, in some ways, he was kind of ahead of the curve, because you look at what Batman Arkham Asylum and following that, Assassin's Creed, because he pushed this idea before those completely retrained the entire industry into what third-person melee combat should be. He knew there was something to that of, look, I just want to push a button really fast and see my character do amazing stuff on screen, and I want to feel like a hero for it. Is that too much to ask? Of course, that is now the driving, consideration. Of course, there's still skill and whatnot involved, but these days more and more, game design is about empowering players and making sure no matter what, no matter where they go, what they do, it's always going to be amazing. You're my age. We came up, on the original Nintendo when what happened on screen was amazing because we had amazing skills with our thumbs.
Absolutely.
Now, what happens on screen can be amazing just because you push up on the analog stick and, hold down the interact with the world button and oh my god, look how incredibly cool this is.
Exactly.
And I don't know, I'm not here to decry that. I don't want to be the old man on the porch saying, in my day, you did real skill. But, that was a big thing that Peter wanted. And he knew why he wanted it, because it was an idea that he knew would catch on. Yeah. And he wanted the dog because, it's not like anybody else. There were like some Diablo clones that had dogs or pet cats, but, there wasn't really anything that had been pushed to the level that we ultimately pushed it, where it was, there less as a element to, use as another gameplay design tool that you have as a player. It was there to form a strong emotional attachment. He knew, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't finished Fable 2, but it's been a few years now. I didn't say the whole thing. He came in and said, right, players are going to have a dog, and that dog is going to die after we make players fall in love with it.
Goodness.
That is what is going to happen in this game. And as soon as he said, oh my god, you're right. We can totally do that. That will be amazing. And so I was on board. He had a few things like that. Another one I can remember that actually I thought was really, really interesting. And it actually kind of gives a little bit of insight into what it's like working with Peter. He had this notion that in the world of Fable, if you're going to be a hero, why not make it like, he was kind of enamored with the Marvel Comics notion of secret identities for the hero. You're amazing. You save the world by night, but then you just go to your office job during the day. Peter Parker is a mild-mannered photographer. That kind of thing. And so, you may have noticed that the jobs you can do in Fable 2 are really mundane.
Yeah. They're dumb.
They are. And that was on purpose. It was a continuation of Fable 1. You had ways that you could, make money and all that. You had little pub games and whatnot. And when we started to work on those, and we were going to upgrade them, we're going to do this amazing thing. You're going to be able to be a bartender running the bar, and it's going to be this incredible game that uses all of our 3D, light parkour elements that you're, jumping over the bar and serving stuff and trying not to spill the drinks. It's going to be this amazing game. It's going to be so much fun. He's like, yeah, we could do that. Or what if we just do a whack-a-mole, push a button and timing kind of thing? And we're like, okay. And that's when he started. At the time, he was really into World of Warcraft. And he was amazed how compelling he personally found crafting in that game to be. Because it's dreary work. Just go out, Click on a rock to collect resources. Once you've done enough of that, go back to town and click on a forge to, and do that for, he was surprised he would do that for hours. He thought, okay, I want to explore this. And I want to see how far we can take that kind of mundanity and tie it into this notion of what it's like to be a hero. And I have to admit, he sold me on it. I was very, very interested because that was a wild, far out idea. That was flying in the face of pretty much what standard design dictates, that you're always the hero, that you're always doing amazing things. And I'm like, okay, I'm on board. And so our entire economy for the game, was predicated on this. That, if you were going to be a good hero, because this is an interesting thing. We knew most players wanted to be good. We had this data from Fable 1, and most games that have good and bad tracks, they always make everything equally balanced. It's same end result where, whether you're good or evil, you'll still get just as much good stuff. You'll still always be powerful and all of that. We decided, and this was really more me and Dean, but working with, kind of piggybacking off of this kind of, secret identity thing that Peter was really keen on, was that, well, you know what? The rewards for being good should be a reward in and of itself. Yeah. Because Peter Parker never gets ahead by being the good guy. It was the kind of go-to example. So we figured if you just went the good path and you got your halo and always did the right thing, you'd be dirt poor. And we knew we were going to have some, connectivity elements, and you'd be able to see the way other players are going to evolve. And you know what? If you went evil, the riches would pour in, and you'd have all the best stuff. And so you could be, a really rich, corrupt, get everything you want out of life if you're willing to bend the rules, or you could be like Cain, wandering the earth. From the 70s show, Kung Fu.
Oh, Kung Fu, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was our go-to. You can be Cain, wandering the earth, penniless, but pure. Yeah. And so everything was built around that. Yeah, you know what? If you need some money and you want to be good, go get a day job. Go chop wood, go serve bar, and you know what? It's gonna be as mundane as your real life job. And these were all really cool ideas. So I was on board. We had the, pub games where you could gamble. And so if you made some money and gambled, everything was tweaked for that. The amount of money you make. And late into development, Peter's actually playing. We're in beta. We're a few months out from shipping. Peter's really playing it like a player for the first time. And he's saying, hey, how come every time I open a treasure chest, I only get like 3 or 4 gold? And all I find is rusty daggers everywhere. This isn't good. I don't feel like a hero. I was like, yeah, Peter, this was the whole thing we've been working on for 2 years. You need to go evil if you want to get all the cool stuff. You keep being good. And we're doing that. And he's like, yeah, you know what? I don't like this. Quadruple the amount of treasure in every treasure chest in the game. Just like that. It was like, this destroys everything. And so there's this really weird element. If you go and play the pub games now, the payout for them is terrible. It's awful. It's a waste of time because we, this universal change was a flip of a switch because, all the chests had like kind of, like automatically generated to a certain extent through our editor tools.
Scripted and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we could flip a switch and just instantly change how all they worked. But the pub games were done externally by another developer, and I contacted them. I called them on the phone and said, dudes, you gotta change all your balancing. Peter's just changed everything. He doesn't understand what's gonna happen. Because he just doesn't see that. And like, we can't. We've already submitted. We've gone gold. Because you remember how the pub games shipped a few months before us. We can't change it now. And they're like, So, that's why you get really weird schizophrenic stuff and the economy is totally borked. Totally insane. I mean, there are so many knock-ons because of that. Because we knew most players were never going to be very rich. And they weren't going to have a lot in the way of potions or items and stuff like that. We knew that's the way it was going to be. Because you may have noticed our interface was not the best. It's not a good idea to have just one programmer working on interface for the majority. He was great, but he was pushed to the limit. And so our interface wasn't that great, but we knew it's okay Because players are going to be dirt poor. They're not going to use the interface that much. But then in the 11th hour, oh no, suddenly players are rich. If they rent a house, they're making money like crazy. And so now players can buy 1 billion potions, and it's a royal pain in the butt to actually drink all these things. So there were like all these weird knock-ons. And it was all just from this one little thing that happened. So that's kind of an example. And, if you want the whole thing to be about Peter, I could give you plenty more. But that's just like
it's your night. I think what we're doing is we're sharing here and we're getting a lot out. And I think there's a bit of cleansing going on. I mean, moving on a little bit from...
Okay.
Do you miss those days, though? Do you miss the kind of having... Would you prefer to have like a design document and know this is going to happen rather than have the kind of the happy jester kind of running in and not meaning to... No, that's not the nicest thing to say, but having Peter kind of running in and saying, right, everything is now blue, go! And then he walks, walks off.
No, Peter, he broke me. I've worked with him directly as close as anybody ever has in anybody's professional career. I went out to dinner with him. I was a guest at his wedding. I've worked really, really close, as did Dean. And I have to, as much as he drove me nuts, I had kind of the easy job because my design responsibilities were the simulation. That's why I have all these stories about the simulation and the balance and the economy and all that. I was really focused on a lot of that stuff. I was focused on the dog. I was focused on the side quests, all the weird little esoteric side adventures you can do. Dean's main job was the main storyline that drove you through, the tale of revenge and all that. And so, man, as much as he broke me, he really broke Dean too, because Dean was in that meeting room with him for hours every day. Whereas anyway, at the end of all that, for the first time in my life, I had high blood pressure. I was, my health was starting to suffer, and I realized I just can't do this anymore. And so, Fable 2 was a monster hit. Won the BAFTA. But, that year. But yeah, I didn't get any Fable 2 royalties because I had to get out. So I had nothing to do with Fable 3. It's interesting. Fable 3 is, I think, an example of what happens with Peter's raw, unbridled ambition and amazing ideas without any kind of, filter. Without anyone to say, right, okay, Peter, we can't do that, but I understand what it is you want. Here's what I think we can do. Now, I have no inside knowledge. I wasn't there. But, Fable 3 has some very big ideas, and I don't think they pay off as well as their ambition should lend them to be. And so, I think that's a reflection of Peter with no shackles other than just the hard, cold restraint of time. And I don't know. Like I said, it's well behind me. After Fable 2, I went on to Splash Damage, worked on Brink, and then after that, I said, okay, I'm done. No more video games. By that point, I had been doing it for 20 years. And, if you know anything about the video game industry, at that level, it's 60 to 80 hour weeks for
it's
years
crunch time and
at a
stuff
time.
like that, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, it's, you don't see, well, there's, there was always that famous, email from the EA widow that was all about crunch time and people sleeping under their desks and stuff like that. Do you keep up with Dean? Do you still speak to Dean from time to time?
No. I don't know. I'm not really a look backwards kind of guy for the most part. I love Dean. I would love to go to lunch with him sometime. He ultimately, I think he made it through Fable 3 and that broke him. And and he's actually living out in the States now, and he's doing little independent, awesome, beautiful, gorgeous development, and taking his time and doing it, going old school, doing everything himself, all the art, all the programming, all the music, all the design. And I think he's in a happier place now as a result. He's charting his own way.
Pottering about kind of like a a guy in a greenhouse or something like that, looking after his individual plants and not having to worry about the massive garden centre.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
They used to, yeah, well, you know, that's the best analogy I can come up with within 2 seconds notice. So you got out the games industry. Now at that time, were you just thinking about something to do? Did you, I mean, had you already been playing the kind of the board games type stuff, or where were you with your cardboard at that time?
It was cardboard that did play a big role in me getting out of pixels, switching from pixels to cardboard. Yeah. I have to admit, I'm only a recent board game devotee. I mean, I've told the story a lot of times. People can hear it on my podcast, but you know, Pandemic was our gateway game, and we only discovered it in 2009. But prior to that, I honestly didn't know that modern designer board games existed. Hadn't even heard of Settlers of Catan. I thought, board games? Well, that's either, you know, Toys R Us Monopoly Fair, or it's Magic the Gathering, or it's Games Workshop. I figured that was it. Oh, and Dungeons and Dragons. I thought that was the full extent of it. I had no idea anything existed. Through a quirk of fate, I happened to discover Pandemic. My wife and I fell in love with it. And, I had that very standard geek transformation over the subsequent 12 months, where I went from owning one game to owning 150 games in the space of a year, or what, ridiculous metamorphosis that so many of us go through. And and the thing is, with every day that I was like a beautiful butterfly coming, out of my years of, being a video game caterpillar, I found it harder and harder and harder to muster enthusiasm for continuing to work on digital, because, my wife and I, for years, we have always looked for video games that we could share. I can't think of any off the top of my head because I just don't think about video games anymore, but we were always looking for them.
There's always been like the GeoQuest ones, there's always been like Puyo Puyo. They always seem to come down to a couple of things. You've got like puzzle games, or you've got things like Bust a Move, which was, I used to play. They always seem to be very, very simple puzzle games. Unless it was like driving games where you're racing. Mario Kart, Mario Kart is still excellent.
We did several years of MMOs, EverQuest, followed by Asheron's Call, followed by Dark Age of Camelot, followed by, I think Anarchy Online for a little while, and then World of Warcraft before we eventually got out. So we were always looking for those. But as we started playing these old style pieces of cardboard and wood things sitting at the table together, it was so much more compulsive and compelling than the best experiences we'd ever had. Because we weren't sitting on a couch, both of us looking at a screen, we were sitting opposite each other at a table looking at each other. And it got harder and harder, like I said, to continue to muster the same enthusiasm and to make games or even to play video games. And, Brink came out. I was incredibly proud of that. I still think it's the best game I've ever worked on. And we were following that up with a game that was basically set in the Marvel universe, the Marvel comic book universe. And it was kind of following up some of the ideas we'd done in Brink. I was incredibly excited for it. I'm a lifelong Marvel fanboy, make mine Marvel, all the way back to when I was a kid. And I was so excited because this was actually going to be canon. We were basically going to be telling the story of the third Secret War in the Marvel's universe. We actually had Greg Pak as our writer. I actually made many trips out to New York and got to hang out at Marvel Comics offices, just talking comics.
Wow.
I knew years before the rest of the world knew that, Nick Fury was going to go black to match Samuel Jackson. I was having the time of my life. But it was weird. I was enjoying all this, and it was interesting. As all this was going on and we were working on Marvel Secret Wars, I was bringing more and more lessons from all these board games I was experiencing into this video game design that I was working on. And so I was finding a way to make it all tie together. But then there was a change in upper management at Disney, and just like that, overnight we were canceled. And it was heartbreaking. And that's it. I'm done. I'm done. Honey, I'm done. I came home. I can't do this anymore. That was the end. And so we started talking about, well, okay, I I have to make an exit. I have to do something else. And, so I told them it's Flash, and we worked out an exit strategy for me, and I didn't leave until they got something else lined up. I helped them line up that, ultimately the multiplayer for the, Batman Arkham game that they did, and got all that going, and then I retired. I quit. Because one of the best things you can do in life is work for the video game industry for 20 years and make a string of hugely successful video games. It turns out you can make a lot of money doing that. And if you have an incredibly smart, savvy, thrifty wife who invests very well instead of just frittering it all away like most of my coworkers would always do whenever they made enough money, we got to buy a fancy sports car or what have you. Or John Carmack deciding to become an astronaut or whatever. We just squirreled it all away and we decided, hey, you know what? I'm in my mid-40s now. I can retire. And then what am I going to do? And so I'm sitting around at home and somebody on Boardgame Geeks is asking Joel Eddy, Drive Through Review, hey, Joel, could you do a video for Helvetia? Because nobody's done a video for it. And Joel said, well, if I had a copy, I could, but I don't. And I said, I've got a copy. I'll make one. And so I just got out my iPhone 4 and filmed a run through and posted it. And people liked it. So I did another one and another one and another one. And it very quickly became a kind of retiree pastime. Because, I'll be honest, Jen had always been worried about, if you retire so early, you're going to drive me insane. For the vast majority of our married life, you have been an MIA guy. I mean, my record is not leaving the office for 4 days straight. Sleeping on the floor and just not making a home because Jen was a video game widow for so many years. And so she thought if I'm just sitting at home with nothing to do and putting around and getting underfoot, it'll drive her nuts. So I started filming run-throughs and they proved to be very popular. And as a result of that, here we are talking now.
But your style is kind of, I mean, there's the YouTube culture. There's the video game YouTube culture and the kind of the reaction videos and, hey, what's up? Here, we're gonna be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's 18 tonight kind of thing and people just that kind of thing. But then, watching a video with you, and I'm gonna press probably the anti-gush button very soon, it's a very relaxed affair. And it's kind of, there's not like a massive amount of horrific production that you're tempted to do as things go. It's kind of gentle. It is almost like, do you know what we're doing tonight? Well, we're going to go down, let's go around Rahdo's house, let's see what he's playing, he's just going to take us through the rules. And that's kind of it. I mean, was that the aim? Is it just evolved naturally, like, Well,
no, I mean,
like
when I sat down and I did a video, I had to think of, how am I going to do this? And I could have just done the Scott Nicholson formula that Tom Vassell has, now turned into an industry, and it's pretty much what everybody does. Yeah. Talking head intro, brief summation of the rules while showing game components, closing thoughts. I could have done that, but I have to admit, I like Tom, and I think he's a very valuable asset in the industry, but those videos never do it for me. They never actually give me that sense of what the game is to play. And again, I come from the video game industry, and at that time, this was a few years ago, the video game Let's Play movement was just starting out. It was just starting to explode.
Yeah.
PewDiePie didn't exist at the time, or maybe he did, but nobody had heard of him yet. And I was, okay, well, there's these really cool things that are happening with video games. Why isn't anybody doing this for board games? Okay, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
How hard could that be? Working in the video game industry for 20 years as a lead designer had trained me very well to be able to think fast on my feet and talk and talk and talk and make sure I'm the last guy talking in the room, because that's how you win. That's how you see your vision forward, by convincing everybody that you know what you're doing and they're following the right horse. So, that's how I decided to do it. At the time, like I said, I think Rodney Smith had been going for a few months before me, or maybe a half a year, and I just hadn't seen him. And if I had, maybe I thought, that's the other guy's doing it. Okay, I'm not going to do it then. But I just hadn't seen that, and so I just did what I knew. And I also did what I thought I personally would want to see. I think, the fact, there's two things about the way I film, which is to say, uncut, total stream of consciousness, Raw, unedited, totally gonzo. There's two elements to that. One is, it means I don't have to spend hour upon hour editing stuff together. Now, at the time, that was because, in all honesty, the computer I owned was a little Samsung NC10 netbook, which fundamentally was not capable of editing video from my iPhone. I actually tried editing with my iPhone. With the iMovie on the iPhone, it was awful. So I knew, okay, I just can't edit this stuff. At the time, I didn't know YouTube had a built-in editor. But I also knew I didn't want to. I know how much work it is to edit. I've worked with really incredibly talented editors, in the video game industry. But, also, Let's Play videos aren't edited. There's an immediacy. There's a connection between the audience and the presenter when you know that anything could happen at any time. Nothing's scripted. Nothing's prepared. When I sit down and I'm filming a run-through, I'm experiencing that game for the first time the same as you. And I think, like I said, that creates an excitement, an energy, a momentum that would be lost if I edited everything incredibly carefully. Because, there are other guys doing run-throughs who do much more professional presentation than I would ever do. And, and a lot of people love them. But I do think one of the keys to my success is, the fact that I can think on my feet and I can talk I have to remind myself to stop talking. And to be polite and let you ask some questions, because I'll just go for another 20 minutes and just as a
do you know what? The people that have listened to the other 87 so episodes of We're Not Wizards will be perfectly happy that I am shutting my mouth and giving you the chance to, it's like, we don't have to wait for episode 100 or anything like that. Richard is officially shutting up and I'm just letting Rahdo talk. I agree with you totally, because there's a relaxed pace, and also there's not a fear there's a fear when you're making content to over edit, to when you don't get something right. The worst thing you can try and do is, the worst thing I can ever do is anytime I record a little intro before the beginning of a podcast to say, there was an audio issue or something like that. I end up recording that probably about 27 or 28 times because I play it back immediately and say, no, that sounds rubbish, or no, you're trying to be funny, or don't be funny, just be normal, or don't sigh, or you're breathing too heavy, or you're recording through the wrong mic, or this just sounds rubbish, or why are you doing this in the first place? The audio's okay. But with yourself, you make errors or mistakes, or you jump back on yourself, and you just seem to be quite kind of relaxed, and I kind of feel like I'm sitting next to you, and kind of like you're going through, as I say, you're kind of explaining the rules, and then it suits my kind of learning style, because I'm not the biggest brained individual in the world, and I like Rodney's stuff a lot, but I find that sometimes because he's very sharp and on the point in cuts and stuff like that.
You could not get more polished.
No, you can't, but sometimes I find I have to rewind the bits because I'm not getting them the same time. Mm-hmm. The stuff that resonates with me with your stuff, and I'm going to have to press this anti-gush button really soon, is that it's a very relaxed pace, and it kind of suits my learning style, and I just kind of, I watched Epic Resort, the stuff that you did with Epic Resort. I watched the stuff that you did with Dungeon Lords, which was hilarious. Well, it wasn't hilarious. There was a point where you knocked all the stuff off the back of the table, and you're just like going, oh, we're just gonna, I'll get that later, that's fine. But it was I think the funniest thing about that was the comments. You kind of have these people that I think they've maybe watched a video of yours for the first time, and they're always going like, that's red, it should be yellow kind of thing. And it's like, I mean, let's face it, the comments that you get, you don't seem to get really kind of really kind of spiky, nasty, salty ones.
I do.
On the ones I've seen.
That's because you don't see the other ones.
Yeah.
Because I have control over that and I just delete them. It used to be, for the longest time, I would actually, perhaps foolishly, try to engage them because, hey, that's a human being on the other side of that keyboard. And I bet anything in their day-to-day life, they are good, kind people who have a lot of friends, who everybody loves them. And it's just something about the anonymity. And it's just something about the internet. And we as a human species have yet to truly understand how to treat each other with kindness and respect through this medium. It just brings out the worst in people.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I used to like try to get through that and say, hey, look, clearly we both love this game. I love it because I filmed it. You love it because you're watching it. Can you just not be a douche and we can just enjoy this together? I mean, why do you feel like you have to come here and be this way? And I've given up. I have to admit, it's a big, big failure and it's really depressing. I've just now gotten to the point where I just delete them. I just delete them and ban them and just make them go away because I've just learned it's a fool. I was Don Quixote, chasing windmills. It just didn't work. And, it was driving me nuts. It was driving me insane and trying to fight for civility. And so now, I'm pretty cutthroat. I just, some things I'll leave, but I am, I slash pretty regularly all the, what do you call it? The spiky stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, the salty stuff, basically the salty stuff. There's some people that like they like to comment and watch the world burn sometimes, but it's kind of, and as I say, it's kind of strange when you kind of overlap into a kind of like a YouTube community because people are willing to throw kind of stuff left, right and centre and it's like, well, come on, I spent kind of hours doing this. I think I mentioned it on another episode recently about we are kind of growing in a bit of popularity and up until now the community's been kind of really, really supportive and it's a case of, well, how do you deal with that first person just turning around saying, I listen to your show and it's rubbish kind of thing, that kind of thing. But you just, no tolerance. Get rid of them.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of gotten to that point. It's interesting. It's really been over the last half a year or so, the last 8 or 10 months that I've for my own sanity, I had to stop. Cause it wasn't just this. I mean, I used to be on forums prior to November of last year trying to talk to Bernier busters and just to get through to them and it's just, and try to open a dialogue and reach across and, build bridges and I would spend hours at that and, and it just got me nowhere. So I just, there were several forums I'm deleting my account. I mean, one of them was actually a invite only video game industry forum that I'd been in for years. And I told them, look, I can't stay here anymore. It's too toxic. I need this out of my life. Delete my account and never let me back in. And I said, no. Here's the email. You can contact us if you ever want to. You can come back in. We really appreciate your voice. No, do not let me back in. And more recently, I've had to do the same thing on Boardgame Geek. I used to subscribe to the general forum where people would just talk in general about board games. And I love it. Yeah. There's, 90% of everything that's talked about there is great and wonderful and interesting. But, it's human nature to be drawn to the fire. And it was making me lose sleep. It was making me miserable. I mean, it's interesting. Rahdo Runs Through has brought more negativity into my life than anything I have ever experienced. And I've worked on video games that were played by millions of hardcore, ravaging, don't think twice about not being nice. But I don't know, maybe it's because Rahdo Runs Through is 100% me. Everything there is a reflection of me. Everything that's said about it is said about me. If somebody's gonna rip apart a video game I worked on, it's easier for me to abstract it and take a step back and say, well, okay, that person doesn't understand the compromises I had to make, the restrictions we had due to time, due to budget, due to Peter, due to whatever it might be. And, this isn't about me, but everything about Rahdo Runs Through is about me personally. So, every time I see another thread where people are just shredding me, and a week doesn't go by on Boardgame Geek now where there aren't people just coming out of the woodwork, saying how crap I am, and it just gets me down. And I think, and again, these are kind, generous, wonderful people. I'd be willing to bet money that their family members would be shocked to know how much pain they cause me with their casual, dismissive, toxic negativity and cynicism. And, and they'd say, and they just brush it off. He's just being a sensitive Sally. He's just being a snowflake.
Yeah,
the number of times I've been called a snowflake, oh man, so.
When's the last time you saw a snowflake in Malta?
Yeah. Not tonight.
Definitely not tonight. I mean, in terms of the games that you record,
yes.
Do you get pleasantly surprised on a regular basis? Because you do, you seem to do regular kind of Kickstarter games. Have you been pleasantly surprised, or do you get pleasantly surprised on a regular basis about how some of the games are still being innovative and still being interesting and still introducing kind of twists on mechanics which are really fresh?
No, I wouldn't say I'm surprised, because I mean the board game industry is in its infancy.
Yeah.
I often, to draw parallels to other entertainment industries, board games hasn't even had their Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffith. Board games hasn't had their Pac-Man.
Yeah.
And people think, oh my God, Settlers of Catan is a big deal, or Ticket to Ride, or Monopoly. But, Pac-Man had a top 10 Billboard charting song. Everybody in America played Pac-Man. Settlers of Catan doesn't have that. And so, yeah, we're learning how to crawl. We haven't even gotten to where we're walking yet. I mean, it's hardly even scratched the surface as to what can be done with little wooden cubes and sheets of cardboard. So, no, I'd be surprised if there wasn't still just an amazing, every month, something that just says, wow, now that's smart, that's clever. And I'll also say, I mean, the way I vet what games I'm going to film, I'm very rarely surprised once it gets to my table. At any given time, I've got a queue of about 20 rule books I've got to read. Because, my show's popular enough that I'm often contacted, especially by, startup independent Kickstarter games, saying, please cover our, because it'll have a big impact. I mean, it just will. And, but the thing is, about a year or two ago, as I was getting more and more into this, I noticed that Jen, my wife and only gaming partner, was starting to push back. It used to be, hey, well, I'll try anything. But it was really starting to burn Jen out. And she's like, man, when was the last time we played a game we really loved? And as soon as I realized, oh my God, I might lose her as a gamer, that's when I put the kibosh on him, and I suddenly, overnight, became very, very picky. And so if you want me to run through your game, first thing I say is email me the rules. And it'll go in a queue of about 20 rules. It'll take me a week or two before I get to it. But I have read, at this point, literally, this is not an exaggeration, thousands of board game manuals. And I've gotten to where I'm pretty good at being able to suss out what the game is going to feel like without ever having to put it on the table. And so I say no to the vast majority of people who ask. Not because the game's necessarily bad, although a lot of the times it's because it's really, really bad. But because that aside, because I know that we won't have fun playing it. And if that's the case, then I don't want it through the front door. And that said, as hard as I do vet, I still do occasionally make mistakes. But I try really, really hard at that. And so because of that, because I do this, I hate to say it for lack of a better term, extreme vetting, I'm generally not surprised. I generally know what's cool and interesting and unique and exciting about the game. If it didn't have something cool, unique, and interesting, I would have said no.
Yeah. Have you ever kind of turned a game down and then everybody starts kind of ranting and raving about it and you're kind of like, I didn't see kind of why that was going to be, or I can't see why that's going to be exciting?
Yes, once. Coincidentally. It was just this year. Clans of Caledonia. The designer for that actually contacted me, 8-9 months ago. He was really on the ball, way ahead of his campaign launching. Oh, yeah. And, and he got tons of prototypes, really shipping quality prototypes to a lot of reviewers. And, I was at the top of his list. He really wanted me to cover it, and he was confident I was going to like it. And I read the rule book, and I said, yeah, I get it. This is a Terra Mystica I would probably enjoy. Yeah. But but there's nothing, It's interesting what we were just talking about. There's nothing in Clans of Caledonia that says, wow, look how clever that is.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time I was reading that, I was also reading about Ohm, which is a Euro that has this very, very cool action selection mechanism that's like this little grid where there's a 3x3, and when you take a tile you've got in your hand and you slide it in, and that means you do that action plus the other two, and then you pick up the other action that you'll do later. And that's just such a cool little clever Rubik's Cube of a system that drives the entire game. I was so in love with that. And I'm like, I'm excited for that because Essen's coming up, and then here's this Clans of Caledonia. Yeah, I can read this. This is clearly going to be solid. I get it. It'll work. But there's nothing that makes you say, wow. And so I said, look, I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to say no. And I told him why. And all the credit to him in the world. He was really cool about it. I said, I'm sorry to hear that. But, you know, heck, maybe you'll be interested when it finally hits retail. Yeah. And then it hit Kickstarter, I think, in April of this year. You know, March or April.
Yeah.
And everybody was raving about it. And everybody. And I just was kicking myself. I could have filmed that. And I didn't. And I guess I was an idiot. And so actually he sent me a copy. I just put a video up for it just this week actually. And I'm kind of repeating what I said in the final thoughts there. I'm spoiling the final thoughts. and it's true. There's nothing cool or fresh or, you know, innovative or outside the box or makes you say, wow, that's clever. But it's just so perfect. It just purrs. It just sings. It just works so well. So I was surprised. I was surprised by how banal it was, and yet it could still be so amazingly fun. So I guess I lied to you earlier. Yes, there was an example of something that did surprise me, but not for the reasons you would have expected.
I saw the most recent video I saw was City of Kings. Frank West's City of Kings. That you seem to kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, we did.
I can't wait to get my copy. I was quite jealous because I was, in fact, I think I shared the video on Twitter, and Frank's been on the show 3 times now. Because the first time he was on, we were going to talk about his game, but we didn't. And the second time we were going to talk about his game and we did. And the third time was when it kind of funded through basically the stratosphere and kind of beyond into space. I think it ended up about 300,000.
Oh my God, really? I had no idea.
Yeah, he funded,
That's
fantastic. He funded kind of, really, really well. So I shared it, and his first thing was, who's got hold of the game? I was like, cause it was an old one of yours. I think you were just taking you just going through how you were playing it and stuff like that. But that was it. But again, it was the relaxed kind of pace kind of thing. I mean,
It's funny you say that because I get so much feedback that I talk too fast, that I need to slow down, that I need to stop mainlining caffeine. I don't drink caffeine. I don't drink sugary pop. I only drink water. That's all I drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. But that so it's interesting. You are the first person I can think of that's ever said, wow, you're really chill, man.
Well, it's just, I mean, maybe it's just because I speak quite fast. But I kind of find that I don't know if it's because it's kind of in your house, it's in your home, it's on the table, everything's kind of set up. There's kind of like, you're just kind of going through it. I mean, I don't know, it works for me. I mean, that's the thing at the end of the day. Are there, playthroughs that you just like to do, you'd like to do games that you've maybe missed out in the past that you just like to do for a bit of fun? Is there any games that you'd like to do that way? There you go.
Let's see. Let's now insert the dead air while I think about that.
No, I mean, that's fine. I mean, you asked,
nothing comes to mind. Hold on a second. I will go to my list. I will go to games.rahdo.com, which is a list of... No, that's a list of everything I've already filmed. Okay, I need to go to ranked.rahdo.com, which is a list of every game I have, and I will scroll down to the ones that I have not filmed. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, no, games.rahdo won't work for that. Okay, sorry. Hold, please. Okay. Insert some music here. All right, so, yeah, this is easy. All right, so what do I own that I have ranked that I have not done a run through for? Dominion. Yeah. Although I've been meaning to do that forever. I intend to do a top 10 Dominion expansions. So, that's just going to be a lot of work. Sentient. Actually, that run through will be going up probably next week.
Oh, there you go.
Steam Donkey. That was a neat little game. But I wouldn't say I'm dying to film it, though. Jam Sumo, that would be kind of fun, I suppose. And not the kind of thing that people would normally ask for, which is too bad. It's a really sharp little game. PAX, Hellas, Primetime, Deadline, Iliad. I'm going to have to say no.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
There you go. I mean, I can certainly look at some of these and I'd say, well, I'd kind of like to do them just because I know the game deserves better. And I wish the word got out. Like, Eaten by Zombies was a really cool little deck builder. And, it's such a sad story. The designer got the rights for it back and he ran his own Kickstarter to get funding for the first expansion for it or the second expansion for it. And it just curled up and died because nobody had heard of it. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, why didn't you contact me? I would have done a run through for you. Because I really like it. So, but that's just because, I don't know, probably the reason more than anything else that I do so many Kickstarter run-throughs is because I like helping people, because I know it will have a really, really big impact on them. And so, yeah, there'd certainly be a lot of cases like that, I suppose. Maybe.
Are there games that, well, there'll be hundreds of games out there, but are there games you're kind of looking forward to just getting your hands on as a player, not as somebody who's going to be doing a run-through of them? Oh, sure.
Too many of them. Hundreds of them, literally.
Yeah.
Let me go back to Board Game Geek. I'm just going to go. I'm always very studiously keeping my Board Game Geek wish list up to date. And I really leverage the ranking system. So, because there's literally hundreds of them. Let's see. The first page, things I ranked a 1, must have. Oh, no, literally, my wish list is 930 entries long. Of games that I want to, games or expansions I want to get. Now,
that's a small forest, Richard.
Yeah. Yes, it's ridiculous. Probably only the first, let's see, this is what, there's probably 300 on this page. So I'd say probably the first 150 or so are ones I know I want. And then everything else after that is like, oh, that sounded interesting, but I don't know enough to actually say I want it. But, I could list 150 games that I'm super stoked for. And I could give them to you in a relatively rough order of importance, if you'd like. I don't know if you want that, though, or if you want me to just pick out a few specific ones.
Just pick a few. Just a couple. A couple that you would like to get your hand on.
I will limit myself to the ranked number 1 must-haves. And what are they? There are 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So, Legends of Andor, The Last Hope.
Yeah.
I love Legends of Andor. Actually, I have to admit, the second one, The Journey to the North, I was a little disappointed. It wasn't quite as good as the original. It kind of lost something the original had. So I hope Last Hope, which is the end of the trilogy, I hope that really turns it around. Not that it needs turning around. Journey to the North was still fantastic, but I gotta finish it out. And then I only hope it does so amazingly well that Cosmos decides, hey, let's make a legacy version of Andor, because that would just be beyond amazing. Speaking of legacy games, Charterstone. Super stoked for that. Yeah, and Pandemic Legacy Season 2. Obviously I will beat feet, and I will cast anyone aside who gets in my way and prevents me from being able to play that. Dragonfire. I fell so head over heels in love with Shadowrun Crossfire, and at the time when I did my run-through, I said, my only complaint is why couldn't it be high fantasy? And now it's going to be high fantasy. So, that's amazing. Merlin, which is Stefan Feld's next game, going to be coming out at Essen. Another big, crunchy, million things going on all at once Stefan Feld game. Escape Plan. I've been waiting for this for years from Vito Lasarda, the Vinos gallerist guy. This is his take on a bank heist. Which,
right, okay.
And what's a bank heist going to be like from Vito Lasarda? If you know how deep and rich his simulations are, how deep is he going to go on the simulation of a bank heist? That's got to be insane.
It's going to be down to what kind of petrol you put in the car.
Indeed. All right. Oh, and actually, at that point, I'm going on into 2s, which are not must-haves, but one step below must-haves.
Yeah. Would you ever jump over the line and kind of get into the design yourself? You've got the years of video game design. Or are you quite happy to just observe and comment and kind of run through games.
Yeah, in all honesty, making video games for so long changed me. I mean, I've been playing video games since I was a little kid. When I was, in the 70s, when I discovered that Pong was the first thing that in the universe that I was actually better at than my dad. Because my dad was a god to me as a 5-year-old. He could do anything, but I could beat him at Pong. And he wasn't pulling punches. He was trying to win, but he couldn't touch me. Ever since then, I was, a diehard devotee of video games. But, making them for 20 years and spending more time thinking about how they're made rather than just playing them. I can't play a video game to this day without studying it and dissecting it and taking it apart. I don't want that. And that's one of the things, board games, my discovery of board games hastened my exiting from video games. I haven't played a video game in months. I haven't played anything seriously in years, like with any kind of devotion. But it wasn't the first time. What was it? Between the PlayStation Xbox One era and the PlayStation 2 Xbox 2 era. The Xbox 360 era. Yeah. I was starting to burn out. Back when I still lived in Texas, and I was like, okay, I think I've seen everything I need to see. And I'm just having a hard time mustering enthusiasm. I mean, there's just nothing new, nothing interesting. I'm just doing the same stuff over and over again. But then the 360 came out and introduced achievements. And that was such a revolutionary thing. This metagame that tied every game I play together and, creates, a meaning, a purpose to my gaming. Granted, it's a stupid purpose, just, trying to, work my way up a score chart, but still, it was so compelling that it kept me going in video games for probably almost another decade before I got burned out again. But I saw it happen. And that first time I was burned out is because, hey, I've seen everything there is, and I know how everything is made, and I'm just not interested. I don't want that to happen to board games. It's my number one worry about Rahdo Runs Through, because I do spend a lot more time. I mean, the only parallel I can draw is Jen, the only player I play with, and she doesn't study these things. She plays it, she enjoys it, and when it goes back in the box, she doesn't think about it anymore. But I don't. I analyze them, because as I'm playing games, I know I'm thinking the whole time, what am I going to say about this game? How am I going to talk about this in my final thoughts? What are my final thoughts? How does this compare to that? And it's changed me as a gamer. And I don't know that that's a good thing for me. So, I'm certainly not going to do Rahdo Runs Through forever. Sorry to say. No. And, whenever I do stop, that will be one of the reasons, definitely. Because I don't want to burn Jen out, and I don't want to burn myself out.
No. You're continuing to, you fund the show through kind of like Kickstarter.
Yep.
And that's done, it does well. It does really, really well. It
doesn't do as well as it looks. I know everybody says, look, Rahdo just took home $50K. That's pretty good for playing video or playing board games. But, I don't see $50K out of that. There's taxes, there's fees, there's Paolo. Paolo ain't cheap. To do all those, and he's worth every penny. I don't mean to, he's absolutely amazing. That guy. It's interesting. Paulo, he was just a big fan of my show. And every time I put up a video, within an hour, he was driving me nuts, pointing out every single mistake that I would make. And and I knew he hadn't even played these games. He was just able to intuit based on what I said. Oh, you must have made a mistake there. And then he was making my life miserable because I would have to go in and add all the annotations to fix them. And then one day I said, dude, can I pay you to do this? You're already watching all of them. Within a half an hour of me posting it, no matter when I do it, you seem to be there, ripping it apart. How about you just save me? It's been a very good relationship. I love Paula.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So, you said yourself, this is, it's not going to go on forever. You're going to kind of keep doing it. Well, it's interesting.
I started doing the funding, because like I said earlier, I was a successful video game developer. We made a lot of money, and we are at a point in our lives, in my late 40s now, where we can retire. Neither Jen nor I have to work. We live very frugal, simple lives. It's why we live in Malta, because the cost of living is just so astronomically cheap here.
Yeah.
But if we live we don't eat out, we don't go to movies, we just live crazy, crazy cheap. But that means I don't have to work. But living crazy cheap means I can't buy board games. At least not to the level I did when I was working full time, and I'd buy, I'd pay $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 a year, in board games, like any good geek, like any card carrying geek. And I realized, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to stop doing that, and that's fine. But hey, if I can just raise a little bit of funds so that I can keep those games coming in, great. And so that's why I did the first one. And the second one. But the third one, I think I've done 5 of these Kickstarters now, was because there was kind of a sudden and unexpected change in our circumstances. Basically medical stuff with my mom and all kinds of things. And I realized, I can't afford to not work anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. I think that was the third year where it changed. And it wasn't, this is just a lark, this is just a hobby, and I'm just doing this funding so I can keep getting the game, so I can keep doing it because I'm retired and I don't want to go stir crazy, and this is just, a fun thing to do, and it did become a job. And it's still the best job I've ever had, because it's the only time in my life I've ever worked for myself. Jen, she's done that her entire adult life. She's always worked for herself. She's run her own, graphic design firms, and now she does her own, fine art glass and all that. But, so it's really, really great. But it has changed now that it's a job. And it's funny. You mentioned right up front that you checked me out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, right? I did, yeah.
One thing you would notice, if you look at the dates, from job to job, I could never stick it out for more than 4 or 5 years before I was going so stir crazy I just had to move on. Yeah. You can see it's just like this regular repeating pattern. I'm starting to get to that point with Rahdo Runs Through as well. I'm starting to hit that same threshold. And so for the last couple of years, like I said, I'm doing it for a job because I don't want to make Jen a video game widow again. I don't want to go back to doing that. No. But we'll see how things move forward in the future.
Could we end up seeing kind of Rahdo the games consultant that you jump in and give people advice?
Oh God, I've actually had several people asking me about that.
That sounds like no.
And, have you ever thought about doing games development? Do you want to come out here? Do you want to be a spokesman for us? Do you want to do development for us? I always say no. Because I don't know, it'd be really hard to go back to working for somebody else, in all honesty, now that I've been doing this.
Yeah.
It's the best job in the world. Tom Vassell will confirm it, as will Rodney Smith and the Shut Up and Sit Down guys, and who else? I guess, Jamie from Secret Cabal podcast. I think that might be it. I think that might be the entire list of people in the world who do this professionally. And
it's not a big list at all. I've had conversations before. We had Michael from Two Can Play That Game, who was saying that it's for
Toucan, right, yeah, the Toucan. I love that. That is, I have to admit, as soon as I saw that, I was like, why didn't I take that? That was brilliant. That would have been perfect.
I'm sure Michael will really appreciate that you've coveted his name. No, he said the same thing as there's in an industry that seems to be really kind of starting to blossom, and there seems to be kind of a bit of money kicking around, and we're kind of getting interest from external industries. Weta did Kickstarter recently, but they've obviously got money behind them.
Yeah.
There was Riot Games doing Mechs versus Minions. Mm-hmm. Again, video game company, a lot of money behind them. But it seems to almost be like the video game industry, where the guys that are creating content and creating media, there's very few of them that can actually claim that they're kind of maybe making enough money to kind of get by, and they always seem to be kind of supplementing their income. The shut up and sit down guys, they're constantly working all the time. I don't even know how they have time to kind of sleep.
Well, and to be fair, I suspect they make a lot more money off of Cool Ghosts. Because a lot of people don't know this, they have a video game channel as well. That they run on Patreon. So because still, if I really wanted to make the money, I should just dump this whole board game thing and switch Rahdo Runs Through over to video games. I know I should do that. Just
would
not
you enjoy
interested.
it as much?
No, I would not. But I could fake it until I make it.
You can fake. There you go.
Yeah.
Rahdo's a faker.
Oh, well, dude, I mean, it's weird. My whole life has led to, has been a long extended, training exercise for this job that I'm doing right now. In high school, I was in a lot of, amateur plays and productions. And I got a job as a door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesman. And, when I was in college, I worked for years on the phone doing customer service at Nintendo as a gameplay counselor.
Really?
And,
I remember phoning those guys in the UK asking about
Scotland?
help
From the UK?
Yeah, well, there was a UK-based helpline thing, so I wasn't going to phone America. Imagine that.
Yeah.
The bill getting from. Well, I didn't understand how to get that switch in the Zelda game, so I had to phone
this
up
day, I could probably from memory tell you how to get to the Maui ball in the original Metroid. I had to walk people through that so many times, hundreds of times. So I did that nonstop, and then I was a video game designer. And it's weird, the first game that I did a couple of little things. And the first game I was the lead on was the original Siphon Filter. And, I only was the lead on that because the lead designer on it quit and just quit the industry altogether, as I would do subsequently 20 years later. And he had enough. And so, okay, well, just put the kid in charge. Give it to him. But I was working alongside the lead artist on the game, who had been in the industry for quite a while. And John Garvin, great guy, love him now. But at the time, oh man, he was gunning for my job so hard. And my first job as a lead video game designer was so sink or swim. I was in the deep end of the pool with the sharks. And I learned very, very quickly, like I said earlier, how to talk and be the last one talking so that my way was the way it went. Because, John and I, it was a friendly rivalry, but it was a good partnership. We pushed each other. But, it's one of those ones that, you hear about in the music industry that can never last. And it was ultimately going to flame out. Even though maybe we got the best out of each other, I don't know. But, that's where I honed my craft through all those years, being somebody who can talk and be engaging, and hold an audience's attention. I remember when I was in Texas and we were working on DreamWorks Shark Tale. We did a video game for Shark Tale, and I had to fly out to DreamWorks, the main campus, because, the movie, which was being developed at the same time we were working, was, there's like 500, 1,000 people working on that. Yeah. And that's a far cry from us. So we were like 60 or 70 people working on the game, and there's like 500 people. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make a presentation. I think, am I going to present this like Jeffrey Katzenberg or something? Is Steven Spielberg going to be there? I don't know. And they said, no.
Will Smith.
They don't give a damn. Jack Black is not going to be there. You're not going to meet Bobby De Niro. Sorry. You're going to make a presentation of the game to the entire production crew of the entire movie.
Oh my goodness.
Step over here. Here's our auditorium completely filled with upwards of 1,000 people working on this. And, by the way, we're kind of going through a rough patch. So, they could really use a boost in morale. So if you could really knock this out of the park, that'd be fantastic.
What did you come? Did you come out to like Simply the Best by Tina Turner playing in the background?
No.
Woo! Come on, guys.
No, that was absolutely insane. And, I did my best. I tried to be upbeat. But I did the same patter that you see me doing Rahdo Runs Through. I'm just very off the cuff, very natural, very, spur of the moment. And, doing a live demo, cause you never know if it's gonna crash or if, you're too busy talking and you get yourself killed, and can you make a joke out of that and you can get them to laugh. And I was told after the fact that actually it was a really good meeting, and everybody came out of there saying, wow, I feel better about the movie I'm working on now because it's gonna have such an awesome video game. Which was mind-blowing to me. So I've been doing this for a while now, basically, is what I'm saying. I'm a salesman at the end of the day.
Well, that's my job as well. So there you go. You do the podcast.
Yes.
Was that was that something extra that you decided, well, I need to help kind of build up the brand? Or?
No. It's really weird. It goes back to what I was talking about with the funding. Because those first few funding drives I did, where I was look, I'm not trying to make this a job. I don't want this to be a job. I'm just trying to make a little bit of cash so I can keep the games coming in, because I just want to be able to keep playing games if I'm retired. That's it. That's all I want to do. And the first one made $4,000, and I think the second one ultimately made 17. It was like such a huge, jump. But I didn't expect it was going to do that much, the following year. And the thing is, I set my target, and you gotta have stretch goals, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily want stretch goals, because I'm not trying to, bring in tons of cash. Because I don't want this to be a job. I'm fighting tooth and nail against this. And, but the money keeps coming in, and I feel like I have to retroactively come up with stretch goals to justify this cash. Because I was trying really hard not to take a salary. So, I'm like, okay, well, oh wow, geez. Alright, well, I guess I'll get better camera. Okay. All right. Okay. I guess I'll fly out to Gen Con and cover that. Okay. Oh, you brought in another 2,000. All right. I guess I'll do a podcast. And that's why I started doing a podcast. Solely to justify the cash that I had not prepared to make.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's doing well. You're getting some, you're getting some decent reviews, some ratings on, iTunes.
Am I? I have never looked. I have no idea. I have to admit, it's such an ancillary thing for me, and I know that's kind of pompous for me to say, because of course I've already got a following from the videos and all that, so I have kind of a leg up over everybody. But is it doing well? I have never gone onto iTunes to look.
I look at it on a regular basis, and let's face it, it's always above us in the charts. So
how do I rate? I have no idea.
As I'm scrolling down, there's always Shut Up and Sit Down at the top, and then you go like that. Okay, there's Critical Hit. Okay, that's fine. Oh, there's Rahdo. Okay,
am I in the top 10?
You're always floating round about this is the UK though. You're always hitting around about the 100 spot.
Oh, okay. Wait. Oh no. You're saying the 100 period, or you're talking about like 100 for board game related podcasts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Phew.
Yeah.
Jeez. If you tell me I was 100 no, that'd be insane. Okay.
The top 100 in all of the podcasts.
Yeah. That would not compute at all. Okay.
You'd have to do a board game.
I'm only in the top 100, huh? I guess I gotta work on that.
Don't do that, because it just makes it worse for me. We're not gonna get it.
No, I'm still just gonna do it in my stupid way. I just basically, I do it in the laziest way possible. Hey, here's the new games I've heard about, and I'm going to talk about the top 10 I did a month ago, and hey, please send me questions. Because the whole show is just answering questions. Then I don't have to be clever and come up with stuff, I just have to answer questions.
What I do is I randomly tweet at people that I've seen on social media and ask them to come on the show. So
that's a good one too.
That kind of worked.
Yeah,
it worked.
Yeah.
It kind of worked this time. I am conscious of the time. I'm conscious it's very, very hot in Malta.
Yes.
But if people want to keep an eye on where you are on the interwebs, where can they find you?
Rahdo.com takes you to my YouTube page.
Yeah.
Podcast.rahdo.com takes you to a page where you can subscribe to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Guild.rahdo.com takes you to a discussion forum devoted to all things Rahdo runs through. Cool. You can subscribe to me at twitter.com/Rahdo, facebook.com/Rahdo runs through. Just, that kind of stuff, I guess.
Excellent.
Or just go to Google and type in Rahdo.
And they'll find you.
Yeah.
You're
it's not a common name. I believe there's some DJ in Bangladesh who also uses the name Rahdo. There's a DJ Rahdo out there somewhere. And every once in a while, you might stumble across him, and I don't know, maybe he does great work.
Maybe he does
as well.
Maybe he sings songs about board games. Wouldn't that be weird?
That would freak me out.
Ah, dear. Listen, this has been fantastic. I've thoroughly enjoyed kind of having you on. So thank you very, very much for taking your time out in very, very hot Malta. Have you finished all your drink? Have you got any left?
Oh, it's long gone. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm counting the seconds, so you get off. Come on, we gotta wrap it up, buddy. Get a little parched.
well, what we'll do is we'll take all those bits of information and we'll put them in the show notes so that we have notes to show. For people who want to find out and keep a track on what we are up to, then just go to Google, search for We're Not Wizards, and you will find us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and even Apple Podcasts. And if you like what you've heard tonight, then please consider dropping us a subscription. Drop us both a subscription if you're not already subscribing to what Rahdo's doing. And also, if you like what you hear, drop us a review. Now, as we always say, don't give us a 10 because that'll make us big-headed. Don't give us a 1 because that'll make us cry. Give us a 5 because that's in the middle and it's kind of average. And we are decidedly average. But someone who's not been average tonight is the absolutely fantastically entertaining Mr. Richard Ham, also better known as Rahdo. Again, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been a blast. Now there's only 2 things left to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards?
We are not wizards.
There we go. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it is a goodbye from Rahdo. Say goodbye, Rahdo.
Bye-bye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and support your content creators because they're generally wonderful, interesting people who try to guide you down the cardboard road in the best way possible. But until the next time, goodbye.